You know, in the world of materials, there's always been this fundamental trade-off. You can make something incredibly strong, or you can make it tough and flexible. But getting both at the same time, well, that's been the holy grail of engineering for ages. But what if a material could, get this, tear itself down just to build itself back up, but better? A wild new discovery is showing us exactly how. So yeah, this is the big puzzle, right? How do you get the best of both worlds? Engineers have been chasing this for decades, because if you can crack this code, we're talking lighter cars, we're talking safer buildings, and way more efficient machines. And for the folks who design materials, metallurgists, this isn't just some fun thought experiment. No, it's a core conflict they deal with every single day. It's called the strength-ductility trade-off, and it pretty much dictates the limits of what we can build. So let me break it down. This is that classic trade-off in action. On one side, you've got super strong but brittle materials. They resist force like a champ, but if you push them just a little too far, they shatter. Gone. On the other side, you have ductile materials. These can bend and stretch and absorb a ton of energy, but they just can't handle the same amount of raw force. The perfect material, well, it would do both. So where's the breakthrough? It actually comes from a special class of materials called medium manganese steels. And deep inside these advanced steels, there's this one particular component. You could almost call it a secret ingredient that really holds the key to solving this whole paradox. And that secret ingredient is austenite. You have to think of steel not as just one solid thing, but more like a microscopic city made up of all these different crystal structures. Austenite is one of those crucial building blocks, and pretty much everything about the final material, how it behaves, how strong it is, comes down to how that austenite is arranged and how stable it is. Okay, and this right here, this is our main character. It's called pre-existing austenite, or if you want to be technical, gamma pre. So after the steel gets rolled flat, these austenite grains are left behind, all stretched out and full of stress. For years, scientists were kind of scratching their heads. What was the deal with these things? Were they a weakness, or were they something else entirely? To finally solve this mystery, researchers decided to do something that sounds simple, but was actually pretty profound. They just heated the steel up and watched. They literally watched what happened to this pre-existing austenite on a microscopic level. And this was their game plan. It looks kind of complex, but it's basically a very carefully controlled heating process, with specific stops along the way. At each temperature stop, they'd rapidly cool a sample to freeze it in time, just so they could see what had changed. It's almost like a recipe for revealing the steel's deepest, darkest secrets. All right, first stop, 680 degrees Celsius. You can still clearly see the original gamma pre-grains. They're all long and stretched out. They are packed with strain from the manufacturing process, kind of like thousands of tightly wound springs just waiting to be released. Now watch this. As the temperature climbs to 730 degrees, something amazing starts to happen. You see those new kind of blocky grains just popping up out of nowhere? That's brand new austenite. They call it gamma. And it's growing right there, next to the old stuff. A whole new structure is literally being born. And by the time we hit 780 degrees, wow, the transformation is almost total. The old, strained grains are basically gone, and they've been replaced by this beautiful, uniform structure of new, blocky austenite. The entire microscopic city has completely rebuilt itself into something way stronger and more organized. But how? How did that happen? This right here is the big aha moment. The researchers figured it out. That old, pre-existing austenite, it wasn't just sitting there. It was secretly orchestrating its own replacement. It was basically playing the role of a double agent. So here's what was really going on. The old gamma brain didn't just disappear. It was strategically deconstructing itself. First, it acted like a little warehouse, breaking down to release all its stored carbon and manganese. Then, those elements came together to form these tiny particles called carbides, which acted like seeds. And finally, those seeds provided the absolute perfect starting points, these little nucleation sites, for the new, much better austenite to grow. It literally sacrifices itself to build something stronger. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Here's how the researchers themselves put it. They call it a controlled decomposition reconstruction. So this isn't a chaotic breakdown. It's a planned demolition and rebuilding project, all happening at the atomic scale. And that gives them a super powerful new strategy to design steels with exactly the properties they want.
Okay, so the science is incredibly cool. But what does this all mean outside of the lab? Well, this discovery has massive real-world implications. It's basically a new, much more efficient playbook for designing the high-performance materials of the future.
Just how efficient are we talking? Well, by using this whole decomposition reconstruction pathway, the team ended up with a final structure that was 55% of that really good, stable austenite. And here's the kicker. They did it without the crazy long, energy-guzzling heat treatments that this stuff normally requires. That is a huge deal. So the big takeaway is this. By finally understanding and learning to control this hidden mechanism, we can now create the next generation of advanced steels way more efficiently. We can tailor them to be both incredibly strong and bendable. And that leads to products that are not only lighter and more fuel efficient, but also a whole lot safer and longer lasting. And that kind of leaves us with this one fascinating final thought to chew on. This whole idea of a material strategically sacrificing one part of itself to build a better version, that might not be limited to just steel. I mean, what other complex materials out there, from ceramics to polymers to new alloys, have these hidden double agents just waiting for us to find them, ready to help us build a stronger, better world?